This is the sweet sound of success with Sue Wilhite, Profit Attraction Master. Tim Green is a solution finder, inventor, mentor, and product developer. He is the founder of Green Sustainable Technology and teaches corporate learning leaders, top performers, and their students his highly effective method for creating and finding actionable solutions to their challenges. He is also a perpetual student, a questioner, and a giant playful kid who loves drums, kites, and dancing. Welcome, Tim Green. Woohoo! Thank you for
Thank
being
you for
on the
having me.
show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, I have too. Goodness gracious. We've had this on the books for what, 3 weeks at least. So, yay. So, I don't think I've ever told you this before, Tim. There is a taiko group here in the Bay Area that's relatively famous. It's one of the big ones in the world. It's San Jose Taiko. And I got to take a class
Wow.
from them. And it was one of the high points of my career. So I just wanted to reach out and tell you that one, that drums and percussion are something that I just love. And here you are, you're in Japan, and it's 11 o'clock here in California. What time is it for you?
I'll put on my glasses. Sorry if it would be 3:08 a.m.
Okay. So bless you for getting up early to come and do this interview. I really, really, really appreciate it. So
No problem.
for your benefit, Tim, and for the benefit of our viewers, I'm just going to say that this is the sweet sound of success, and the subtitle is The Hero's Journey for the Entrepreneur's Soul. And what we're going to do is this interview follows Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, in that I take about 5 of the pieces out of that journey because I think they're relevant, very relevant to the entrepreneur's journey and how entrepreneurs deal with life. So those points are the ordinary beginning. And I always laugh when I say the ordinary beginning because no entrepreneur is ordinary. What was the call to action? What prompted you to sort of accept and acknowledge and leap into the void to be an entrepreneur? Who were your allies, mentors, and sidekicks? Because a lot of people have this weird idea that entrepreneurs, the solopreneur, the one or two guys in the garage, or the one woman powerhouse who makes it happen, is not true. There are always people who are there to support you. The big hairy monsters that you had to go up against, there's always challenges. Entrepreneur equals challenge, sort of an equation there. And then finally, when you are an entrepreneur, you are doing this, and unless your family has a history of being entrepreneurial, there's a little bit of resistance from other folks in your life who don't get it. So how did you deal with that? So there's the structure. We're going to get this going and wrap it up in 30 minutes-ish. And
Great.
So, Tim, first question. What was your ordinary beginning?
I have to say, maybe I'm not ordinary in one way for sure. I can't tell you when my ordinary beginning happened because it was probably before I had a memory. Many years ago, I asked my mom when I first started destroying toys or whatever else, which I always got in trouble for, to see how they worked and things like that. And she answered, as long as I can remember. So my journey almost began at birth, being interested in science and inventing. And even in early childhood, I was still trying to make robot arms, even though I didn't know how.
Right. Yeah. So you just came out trying to change the world.
Yes,
Trying to
that's
figure out
right.
how it was put together and let's make it work.
Hmm.
Yeah, how cool. So would that be equivalent to your call to action, or when did you realize that you could make like a career out of this?
I'm not sure. Again, that's sort of blurry. All I know was when I was young, I was already calling myself an inventor, which later I learned is maybe not the ideal word for the corporate world because they're a little bit afraid of the word inventor.
Right?
Though I still use it because I want to change that paradigm. Um, yeah, it was never really a call to action. It was more like a foregone conclusion. This was what I was meant to do.
Right? Yes, a lot of folks who are uh, creatives in that way, I see that a lot. I see that, it's just what I do. There was never a call to action. There was never something that just sort of said, "Da!"
Yes. Yeah.
and, the voice from on high or the light bulb went off. It's just who you are, what you do, right?
Yeah.
So when what kind of, I guess we'll call them challenges or big hairy monsters, did you get to cope with? Because as you said, inventor is something that the corporate world does not react well to unless they're they're actively looking for inventors, and then they want an inventor of a particular stripe, right?
Yeah. Well, I would have to say the main one is something you've already referred to when we were talking about family. As much as it may shock people, there's even a parable. A friend of mine is Islamic, and it's like something to the idea of the prophet is not welcome in his home or something like that.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
gist is, even to this day, I'll talk about how I've dealt with it, but by and large, my family is like, that's great, that's really cute, but get a job, when in fact I already had a job. So that's probably been one of the main ones, is just that, let's call it displaced love, I guess. They want the
Mm,
best for you, but that they don't
right.
understand necessarily that the best for you is not the well-trodden path to a job you'd rather not be doing.
Right. So Tim, let's do a project together. Let's get a viral t-shirt going that says I have a real job. It's called CEO.
Yeah, something that like that might work.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So were there any other challenges that you got to play with?
Oh, some of them I'm still playing with. One was I found a mentor who,
Mm-hmm.
maybe because I'm a little thick or because I'm so determined and committed to make this happen, it took me approximately 8 years to realize, basically 8 years of paying this mentor who actually has quite a good reputation. But ultimately, what I learned is that after about 2 years, I had nothing left to learn. And their system for licensing, which is my main
Mm,
path I've looked at thus far, just wasn't that effective. That the percentage of people, even with the instruction, was still quite low. So that was a big challenge. So that was literally, hundreds or thousands of phone calls and seeking out the decision makers. And maybe one of the biggest challenges was getting to the point, and this is one of my favorite sayings, after realizing that time-bound goals are kind of nonsense because, by the end of the year, I'm going to do this. In the real world, there's no way to predict that.
right.
So I believe it was Jim Rohn said, I will climb this mountain or die upon it.
Uh-huh.
And when I adopted that, it didn't make it necessarily funner, but it helped me understand that I can't just say I'm going to do it to this because this is intrinsic to who I am.
Right.
So I will do this until I die of old age or succeed. So that's probably the main one, is because it's been so long. Honestly, I've spent 12 years and I've got to the edge of what could have been a a 6 or 7 figure deal, but because of a decision that the licensing company made, it may or may not have made the difference between that going through. So I've been right to the edge,
Right.
and then to build the mental toughness to be that close to finally succeeding, and then a few weeks later go, oh, I'm just still me, and I'm at the same place that I was many years
Right.
ago,
Right.
and still having the balls to continue.
Right. And I'll say, Tim, that this is a story, this kind of story is something that I hear a lot,
Mm-hmm.
where you follow somebody else's path that was successful for them, but it doesn't mean that you can follow that same path.
Right.
And people all over the world do this all the time with people who have great reputations, because
Mm-hmm.
there are some people who have the same mindset or have the same DNA or whatever it is, that they end up being able to follow that path. But for other people, it's going to be a total fail, not because the system fails, but because they're not the same.
Right.
And
I think
and
it.
it's tragic.
Mm-hmm. I think it goes deeper than that, at least in my case, because I can't speak to other people's cases. But really, I think the system was, upon reflection, being a student for 8 years and now 4 years after that, I think the system is in fact deeply flawed in that it's incomplete. But as much as I wished it hadn't taken me so long to realize that,
Right.
it has left me and helped me develop my own system that you alluded to, in that I know how to do what I was taught better than my teacher, because I myself have been an English teacher for 14 years here in Asia. And what I realized is the incomplete component um, is sort of the key, probably for me and probably for a lot of people. And I, in fact, uh, approached my mentor, and they were not receptive, which I
Yep.
found very interesting.
Right. And that's the other thing that I hear is, you go to somebody and say, hey, this could be better and it could be like that. Nope, 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 nope. Can't be done.
Right.
So, yeah. So, on top of that, then, who were allies and mentors that actually did help? What were the sorts of things that did help you?
Mainly the sorts of things that helped me, I would say, is I happily was laid off of a job that I really did not find fulfilling. I was printing junk mail in a big factory in
Oh,
Calgary,
goodness.
for Safeway and other companies, right? So it was literally just retail food flyers and stuff. Um, a great job financially, but completely lacked meaning. And
Right.
the
I suppose
gift that I
somebody
got,
has to print those.
somebody has to do it, but I'm glad
Wow.
it's no longer me.
Yeah.
You're not satisfied with a job when you go from a high-paying job with benefits, and when you're laid off, you're actually relieved and happy to
Right.
be there.
Right.
Um, but the gift that I got out of that is they were actually really good about doing sort of career retraining.
Hmm.
And so I got an opportunity to go into a fairly high-priced system, retraining system, reemployment system, where I was able to interact with other entrepreneurs and people who had actually successfully done some of the things, and get real insight into what would it look like if I went full on at this. So that
Nice.
was other ones. I would actually say you're better off, because the truth is they care less than your family. Find enthusiastic strangers and like-minded people. Uh, Singularly, I would say the biggest supporters I have ever had would be a few open-minded close friends, but mostly it's been people who start as complete strangers that I meet on things like Zoom. I have more champions now than I have ever had, because they understand the possibility of entrepreneurship that other people, it's just not in their reality, their consciousness that somebody could really do that.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so in other words, well, I'm making an assumption here. The pandemic opened up all of these online networking groups, which is where I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And we never would have met
Mm-hmm.
otherwise. I mean, you're in Japan, I'm in California. I have ties to Japan, but not that close. I haven't been to Japan I haven't been to Japan yet. But I have a friend who travels there all the time, and I kept wanting to hop in his suitcase. Uh, so
Right.
often.
Well,
But
and that's totally the case. Like COVID is actually, and I'm not belittling the tragedy and hardship this has caused,
absolutely.
because it's reflected on me too in terms of employment and income in a big way. But it's also a blessing in that, absolutely what you're saying, a lot of people who were the same kind of people who would be find uh, entrepreneurship unimaginable also would have found online meetings, which I wasn't unfamiliar with. I had done them a lot, but in fact, it woke up in me the solar energy projects that have actually been sitting in my brain for about 30 years, which I'd put so far on the back burner because without the right relationships and resources, I could never do them. Now with Zoom and with the relationships I have built, in fact, just the other day, I talked to somebody who could probably introduce me directly to some billionaires, but he wants to make sure the relationship is sound and I'm not one of these tourists. Yes, I'm going to be a millionaire in a year, and if I'm not there, I'll quit.
Right.
He went through very carefully and said, well, this could take 5 years. It's like 5 years, that's a blip. I'm 12 years in. I got the
Right.
rest of my life, but I want to do it quick and I'm willing to work for it.
You're going to
And
climb
that would
that
have never
mountain and
happened.
climb it. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. That is, yeah. It's been a horrible tragedy. And yet so many opportunities have come out of this that are just stunning. I can't wait to see what the world comes up with as part of
Mm-hmm.
this. So we've we've actually covered most of these points of uh, of the
It's all
hero's
good.
journey. So I'll go to some of your questions that you had, and so one of the questions that you had I thought was actually really interesting, and I'd love to uh, uh, go deeper into this. And that is,
Mm-hmm.
what is the greatest popular contradiction about success?
Okay. Yeah. When I think about that, I just think of there's two things. First of all, like you talked already about the myth of the solopreneur. And that's largely true, yet it is a contradiction because as much as absolutely, I can't do this solar stuff without other people and other people probably with millions of dollars.
Right.
And the many, many books who someone had to write that I then read, which has helped me a great deal in forming sort of the consciousness that led to this system that I have. So there's always somebody behind it, directly or indirectly. You cannot do it without them. At the same time, it's sort of like running a student club, which I did in university. You are still the only one to take action. So in one way, it's all you. That
Right.
is taking action, taking responsibility, doing everything within your control, and taking action on it is entirely on you. But no matter how you do it, you're still going to be reliant on other people, either directly and indirectly. And one of the main things I think that has held me back more than anything is the system, part of the system I was using again, uh, had no consideration of the idea of relationship building as we now understand it in social selling.
Wow.
And why would somebody want to potentially risk hundreds of thousands of dollars on an idea when I'm just another one of 100 or 10,000 strangers this year?
Right.
Um, that's not a good foundation. Whereas if they know me through relationship building, then they go, well, this sounds crazy, but I know this person and I know what they've done. And because of that, like bottom line, you're going to do business with your friends or at least somebody you respect, but that doesn't happen over, hi, this is Tim
Right.
Green. I got a great invention. You want to license it? It's
Right.
not the way it works.
Right. Right. Particularly when it's something semi-unfamiliar, you know?
Yes. If it's
And
too novel, it actually struggles in the market.
right.
There's some research on that, and it basically says that a perfect product or a product most likely to succeed is a balance of sufficiently unique but sufficiently familiar. And if it's revolutionary, there's a lot of revolutionary technologies that have utterly failed, not because they weren't superior, but because they were too far outside of people's reality. So they just couldn't grasp how that could work.
Right.
So that's always a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is so true. Uh, and one of the things I'm going to plug Product Hunt again. I think I've done it before on this show. Product Hunt gives me hope for humanity because Product Hunt features all of these products every single day that people are inventing to solve problems that I never knew existed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh yeah, that's a great solution. And so there's going to be somebody out there who's going to invent something that's going to solve a major problem that we have. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of time. The human beings are incredibly inventive, and you're one of those inventors.
Just so happens.
Yeah. So, Tim, here's my other favorite question that I like to ask. What's the favorite part that you have of what it is that you do?
That is also kind of interesting because many times when I design something, essentially in a sense, you could say I'm a professional complainer. That is, I see something, I realize it is, especially if it's something I'm personally using it. Most of my products come from my real life experience. So I'm always trying to experience broadly. And what happens is I recognize something that is working at less than it could, and then I go ahead and design it. And sometimes by the time I'm finished something in 3D or I've nailed it. Sometimes it's hard for me to go forward about commercializing it because to me, it's like, soon as I solve the problem and I'm satisfied that it would work, a lot of the allure goes away because to me, that's probably the high point. It's like, okay, I have a challenge. I want to do this. I figured out a good way to do it. I
Yeah.
simulate it in my head and it's like, yeah, I'm pretty darn sure that would work. And for me, a lot of it goes away after that, which is why ideally where I want to go is to that point where I am churning out ideas. I do that and I literally hand it over to an engineer or a prototyper. And then I'm only involved to solve problems because as much as I do like tinkering, for me, the thing is, okay, I've solved it. Okay,
Right.
let's find something else to solve.
Right. Right. So that creative part,
Yeah,
the problem solving creative part is
right.
your favorite part.
Right. But
Yes.
specifically arriving at the solution, when I feel like I've actually arrived at a solution, it's like everything after that is kind of details. And that execution is probably much harder because it's in the physical world. But at the same time, yeah, that's the big thing for me. It's like when I've come up with a good solution that I think will work in the real world, then I would be happy to farm out the rest and then just collect the licensing income.
Right. Yeah. So you're what I call a starter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a starter. I
Mm-hmm.
love the creative process. I love the problem solving. When I was a programmer and systems designer back in the day, that was my favorite part. When somebody came to me and said, here's this thing that we need to have done, I'd be like, great. And when I got into it and into the trenches and doing the creation and having it, that was the great part. And when they gave me feedback, oh, well, you need to tweak this. It's like, oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody else can finish this. So what you need is a finisher,
Right.
somebody who isn't necessarily into the creative part, but loves taking something that's almost done and making it perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you need to partner. If anybody's watching, if you're a finisher, contact Tim.
Yeah.
Get in touch
Yeah,
with
please
Tim.
do. I'm always into collaboration. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
especially the big ones I'm doing with the solar stuff, um, it is still an incomplete solution. It's good conceptually, but it needs to go all the way. It has to be in the physical world, and it has to be proven at
Right.
sufficient scale. And for me, that literally means money and engineering.
Right.
And
That's
when
somebody else.
that's solved, that's if it works the way my imagination and knowledge to my limit says, that could be a game changer. It should make heliogen look like a toy, even though heliogen is far more complex, which is why I think mine is a better option.
There you go. So, is there anything else that you want to share with our viewers, Tim?
Sure. I guess this is what it is if you want to go on a journey like this, actually Gary Vee's really good at this about, he got my attention. It was like, he was the first person who said, this is lonely, it's hard, it's unrewarding. Even people you really care about will doubt you. I would say, unless you are willing, hopefully it never takes you this long. But when you start, if you're not willing to put 5 or 10 years of your life into making it happen, and it's not something that's that meaningful to you, you can pivot and stuff. But the bottom line is, you should realistically expect to spend a decade of your life to as necessary time to achieve success. That is not uncommon. That's the rule. Um,
Right.
Even when we watch these movies, first of all,
Yeah.
Apple was not actually started in a garage. There's a book out there, a free book, in fact, by the Heath brothers called The Myth of the Garage, and talks specifically about that and the tragic lies that it's a 5-minute montage away from you being a billionaire. No, it isn't. It's years of nobody caring or believing in you. So unless you have almost irrational amounts of belief and determination, and it really is meaningful, you can go work for somebody else who has that vision and make their dreams a reality instead, and just collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
That's a realistic option for anybody who's not willing to fail for a decade or perhaps more.
Yeah. And I think anybody in the entertainment business would absolutely agree with you, because
Yes.
it is the same process. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who would love to strut their stuff on the tube, and there's many of them who have. Now that we have YouTube and webcams,
Yeah.
but there's only a few of them that have actually done something that was interesting enough that it caught people's attention. So, and you can say exactly the same thing for entrepreneurs.
Right.
And yeah,
If you don't love the process,
into it.
yeah. Yeah. If you don't love the process and the challenge, the problem solving, it's probably not for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're not willing to perhaps even fail ultimately, but having done so, saying, I failed honestly, that is, actually went as far as you are capable, pivoted, relearned, and then looked at it and maybe went, okay, I guess this isn't for me. That is not a shame, and should never be a shame if you really tried.
Right.
Versus if you're kind of, well, I'm just going to try it and see if it works out, then you probably just don't start. Just go get a job at 7-Eleven or something.
Right.
It'll probably be better money.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you
You're
for
most welcome.
sharing your experience and wisdom with us. And I also, before I forget, how do people contact you, Tim?
They can go to my LinkedIn. I think if you just go timbgreen.com, that will actually directly you to my LinkedIn, because I own the domain.
Perfect. Wonderful. And thank you, my viewers of The Sweet Sound of Success. are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action coaching program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action coaching program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.